Welcome back to Raul Effect, where we go beyond the surface of relationships and attachment to uncover the psychology behind why people pull away, why they struggle with intimacy, and what you can do to protect your peace without losing yourself. An avoidant can care about you deeply and still run from the connection the moment it feels too real. The question is not whether they feel something, it is what they are more afraid of losing, you or their sense of safety. You can give an avoidant person your time, your attention, your patience, and your entire heart, and they may still create distance. That does not automatically mean you failed or that you were not enough. Sometimes the real issue is something much deeper inside their emotional system, something they may not even fully understand themselves. And once you understand what an avoidant is actually protecting, all those confusing patterns start to look different. The sudden withdrawal, the hot and cold behavior, the moments of closeness followed by distance, and the relationships that seem to almost become something meaningful before falling apart can begin to make sense. Before we go deeper, comment the word loyal if you have ever tried everything possible to make someone stay. And if you want to understand attachment, relationships, and emotional patterns beyond surface-level advice, subscribe to. Here is something difficult to accept. An avoidant person may experience love very differently from you. That is not an attack on them. It simply means their emotional system may interpret closeness differently. Many people spend years wondering what they need to change to finally make an avoidant stay. They become less demanding, give more space, become more affectionate, pull back, try again, communicate differently, and constantly adjust themselves. Sometimes the avoidant comes closer for a while. They may open up, become affectionate, or talk about the future. Then suddenly something changes. The messages become shorter. The connection feels different. They become distant again, leaving you wondering what you did wrong. But sometimes you did nothing wrong at all. The deeper issue is what the avoidant has learned to protect above everything else, their sense of emotional safety. For many people, safety in love means closeness, trust, vulnerability, and knowing someone will be there when you need them. For an avoidant person, safety can be connected to independence, personal space, emotional control, and the ability to rely primarily on themselves. That difference changes everything. They may not be choosing someone else instead of you. They may not be choosing their hobbies, their work, or their independence because they secretly dislike commitment. Those things may simply feel safer because they allow them to remain in control of their emotional world. And genuine intimacy can feel threatening because intimacy requires vulnerability. That is why trying harder does not always create more closeness. You can prepare thoughtful meals, send caring messages, remember every important detail, and constantly reassure them, yet still watch them retreat. The more emotionally intense the connection becomes, the stronger their instinct to create distance may become. It can feel incredibly personal when you are giving everything and still watching someone pull away. But understanding the pattern can help you stop turning their reaction into a judgment about your worth. Avoidant attachment usually develops for a reason. It is often connected to early experiences where emotional needs were ignored, dismissed, or met inconsistently. A child who repeatedly learns that expressing sadness, asking for comfort, or depending on someone leads to disappointment may eventually decide that needing others is unsafe. So, they adapt. They learn to depend on themselves. They suppress vulnerable emotions. They become highly independent. They stop expecting others to meet their emotional needs. As a child, that strategy can provide protection. It helps them function in an environment where emotional dependence feels painful or unreliable. But the child eventually becomes an adult, while the emotional strategy remains. Then they meet someone who genuinely reaches them. They may feel excitement, affection, attraction, and even a powerful desire for connection. Part of them wants intimacy because they are human and they need connection too. But as the relationship becomes deeper, another part of their nervous system may begin sounding an internal alarm. Suddenly, closeness feels overwhelming. They may become busy, emotionally unavailable, uncertain about the relationship, or unusually focused on your flaws. They might start questioning whether you are really right for them or convince themselves that something is missing. And here is the important part. They may genuinely believe those thoughts in the moment. Their mind is searching for an explanation that makes distance feel necessary. It is not always conscious manipulation. Sometimes their emotional system is simply trying to restore the independence and control that it associates with safety. That is why understanding an avoidant pattern requires looking beneath the behavior. The withdrawal may not mean there was no love. Sometimes it means the closeness activated fears that the person has spent years learning how to manage. And that is exactly why you cannot solve the problem by simply loving harder. When an avoidant person suddenly creates distance, it is often their emotional system trying to protect them. They may not be carefully calculating their behavior or intentionally trying to hurt you. They are responding according to patterns that were formed long before you entered their life. In many cases, they are responding to an old definition of safety. That internal system does not measure your love, your sacrifices, your memories together, or everything you have tried to build. It was created during a much earlier period of their life when they had limited emotional resources and very few ways to protect themselves. Over time, that response can become automatic. But this is where people make a serious mistake. Once they learn about avoidant attachment, they sometimes use that knowledge as a reason to keep tolerating everything. They think, now I understand why they behave this way. Maybe I just need to be more patient. Maybe I should give them more space. Maybe I need to love them differently. Maybe if I stay long enough, they will finally feel safe. It sounds compassionate, but there is a danger in thinking this way. Compassion should not require you to abandon yourself. An avoidant person can absolutely grow. They are not permanently incapable of intimacy, love, or healthy relationships. But meaningful change requires their participation. They have to become willing to examine their behavior, recognize their patterns, take responsibility, and actively work on themselves. That may involve therapy, honest self-reflection, healthier communication, and sustained effort over time. What does not create lasting change is you constantly adjusting yourself around their wounds. You cannot make yourself smaller, tolerate behavior that repeatedly hurts you, or accept emotional unavailability simply because you understand where it came from. Understanding someone's pain does not require you to carry that pain for them. You can recognize why someone struggles with intimacy while still deciding that their current behavior is not healthy enough for you. Those two things can exist together. You cannot personally repair another person's attachment wounds. You cannot love someone into becoming secure if they are unwilling to do the work themselves. A patient partner can create a supportive environment, but the actual transformation has to come from the person who is struggling. And this becomes especially important when you are trapped inside the push and pull cycle. You probably know the pattern. They withdraw, and suddenly you feel their absence intensely. Anxiety rises, so you reach out more. You send another message. You try harder. You give more reassurance. Sometimes they stay distant, and your anxiety grows even stronger. Other times they suddenly return. They become warm again, and the relief can feel incredible. That reunion can create such a powerful emotional high that you start craving the next moment of connection. Then they withdraw again, and the entire cycle begins from the beginning. Eventually, your attention becomes organized around their behavior. Their messages determine your mood. Their silence changes your entire day. A small affectionate gesture feels enormous because you have been waiting for it. This unpredictability can make the relationship extremely difficult to leave. The highs feel intensely rewarding because they arrive after emotional lows. You may not be weak or foolish for struggling with that pattern. Your nervous system has simply become conditioned to anticipate the next moment of connection. The way out begins with recognizing the cycle instead of constantly trying to win the next round. Choosing yourself may initially feel like losing something important. You may feel as though walking away means abandoning someone who needs patience or giving up on a relationship that could eventually become what you hoped for. But choosing yourself does not mean you never cared. Your need for consistency is legitimate. Watching affection, communication, emotional security, and dependable connection does not make you needy or weak. These are normal human needs. You deserve a relationship where those needs can be met consistently, even if neither person is perfect. You deserve someone who can recognize when they are withdrawing and communicate instead of disappearing. Someone who can acknowledge their patterns rather than making you responsible for managing them. Someone who is willing to build a relationship with you instead of keeping the connection permanently at the distance that feels safest for them. And I want to make something clear. This is not about labeling avoidant people as bad. Many avoidant individuals are struggling too. Their withdrawal can hurt the people around them, but it can also leave them deeply isolated. They may appear completely independent while carrying a loneliness they rarely acknowledge. Some have become so skilled at suppressing their emotional needs that they genuinely believe they do not need anyone. But there is a major difference between being comfortable alone and becoming disconnected from your own need for connection. An avoidant person may spend years convincing themselves that independence is enough. Yet when the distractions disappear and they are finally alone with their thoughts, they may encounter an emptiness they cannot easily explain. That quiet ache is often the part of them that still wants connection, even if they have spent years learning how not to need it. That emptiness is often connected to something very human, the desire to love, to belong, to feel understood, and to know that someone can see the real you and still choose you. An avoidant person may want those things deeply while simultaneously being terrified of experiencing them. And that fear can shape almost every part of their emotional life. It is painful for them, and it can be equally painful for the person who loves them. But understanding someone's pain does not mean you have to remain inside a relationship that is destroying your confidence. You can care about someone, understand where their behavior comes from, and still decide that the relationship is hurting you too much. So what do you actually do with all of this understanding? The first step is to stop trying to compensate for their distance by giving more. When someone pulls away, your instinct may be to increase your effort. You want to prove that you care. You want to remind them of your value. You want to show them that you are worth choosing. But constantly responding to withdrawal with more effort can keep the cycle alive. They pull back, you move closer. They feel safer because the relationship remains available without requiring them to participate equally, and the pattern repeats. Instead of endlessly increasing your effort, allow the relationship to have mutual responsibility. You should not have to carry the emotional weight for two people. The second step is becoming completely honest about your own needs. Forget what you think you are supposed to tolerate. Forget what seems reasonable because of their attachment style. Ask yourself what you genuinely require to feel loved, respected, secure, and emotionally connected. Write those needs down if you have to. Say them clearly. Do not apologize for having them. Then look honestly at reality. Is this person meeting those needs today? Not someday if they change, not theoretically if they begin therapy, not if they eventually become more comfortable with intimacy. Are your needs being met right now? If the answer is no, that answer matters. You are allowed to make decisions based on the relationship you are actually experiencing, rather than the relationship you hope might exist one day. The third step is to redirect some of the energy you have been pouring into them back toward yourself. Think about how much time you may have spent analyzing their behavior, adjusting your communication, giving them space, studying their reactions, and trying to discover the perfect way to make them feel comfortable. Now take some of that energy and invest it in your own life. Reconnect with friends, pursue your interests, focus on your goals. Build routines that have nothing to do with whether they call or text. This does two important things. First, you begin remembering who you are outside the relationship. You stop allowing another person's emotional availability to determine the quality of your entire life. Second, you naturally become less consumed by the push and pull, not because you are trying to make them jealous or manipulate their emotions, but because you are genuinely living again. The fourth step is learning when communication has turned into self-abandonment. Communication is healthy. Explaining your feelings can be healthy. Expressing your needs is necessary. But there comes a point where you are no longer communicating. You are pleading. You are repeatedly explaining why your feelings matter. You are defending basic needs. You are trying to convince another person that you deserve consistency, affection, and consideration. If you constantly have to argue for your own worth, something is already wrong. A healthy relationship should not require you to make a case for why you deserve to be treated well. And eventually, you have to become willing to accept the possibility that the relationship may end if your needs continue to go unmet. That is not a threat. It is a boundary. Sometimes that reality motivates an avoidant person to seriously examine their behavior and begin changing. Sometimes they choose to continue living at a distance. Either outcome gives you something valuable: clarity. Not every relationship is meant to become permanent. Some relationships reveal patterns you never knew you had. They show you how much you tolerate, how often you silence yourself, and how easily you can abandon your own needs just to keep another person close. If you repeatedly find yourself attracted to emotionally unavailable people, that pattern deserves your attention too. The goal is not simply to understand the avoidant. You also have to understand yourself. Sometimes the intensity of chasing someone unavailable can feel like chemistry. The uncertainty creates emotional highs and lows that can be mistaken for deep connection. But secure love usually feels very different. It feels steadier. It feels clearer. You know where you stand. You do not spend every day wondering whether the person still wants you. Healthy love does not require you to become smaller so another person can remain comfortable. It does not demand that you ignore your needs or constantly prove your value. Healthy connection should allow you to become more fully yourself. You deserve someone who chooses you with consistency, communicates with you honestly, and makes room for your needs instead of keeping you permanently uncertain. So stop measuring your worth by how much someone finally gives back after you overgive. Stop calling emotional crumbs a relationship, and most importantly, become loyal to your own well-being. When you finally accept that your needs matter too, your entire perspective changes. You stop chasing unavailable love. You stop exhausting yourself trying to earn someone's commitment, and you create space for a relationship where love can actually be mutual. If you have been loving an avoidant, remember this: their distance does not automatically mean you are not enough. You cannot heal their wounds by sacrificing your peace, and you cannot earn secure love by endlessly proving your worth. Understand their patterns, but never abandon yourself trying to survive them. Real love should allow both people to feel safe, respected, and free to be themselves.